Go back next week for special session, and we did ours last week. I don't know that we're going to do any more. I hope not. I'm ready to come home and get ready some stuff back home. But anyway, I'm going to let the senator go first, and then I'm going to clean up what he doesn't talk about. So, Senator Casey Murdoch, he got up at 3 o'clock this morning, so he should be wide awake. Drove in this morning, so good to see you.
Thank you, Carl. I don't know why I feel a little bit nervous with Carl speaking after me. It's not so much what he cleans up, it's just I can't defend myself after he talks. But no, this year was interesting, and I've been down there 9 years, and about halfway through session I told someone I felt like I had seen everything in the 9 years that I'd been there, and this year I saw stuff that I'd never seen before. It was unprecedented, but you know, I was elected in 14, Carl was elected in 16, and we did not go in good times. My first year we were $680-some million hole in the budget, and I thought that was horrible until the next year we had $1.3 billion hole in the budget, and it got worse. This year, the opposite. We had lots of money, and I think we fought more this year than we were fighting when we didn't have any money. To say the least, is interesting. But you know, the good things we've done. I'm going to hit on some of the legislation that I passed. Actually, Carl and I passed. Carl, when I file legislation, Carl gets first dibs on what he wants, as far as what he wants to be a House author on. So pretty much all of my bills, he's the House author. But Senate Bill 291 did not realize that child abuse victims, you couldn't get a victim protection order for them. They're not on the list, and that shocked me. But that bill, we got child abuse victims on the list of being able to get a victim protection order. And just protecting our kids, I think that goes a long way. And like I said, I didn't think it was a big deal. And the governor wound up vetoing that bill. And we overrode his veto last part of session, and it went into law. But I did a eggs and issues in Cheyenne. So my district has expanded on into Roger Mills County. They didn't think my district was big enough, so let's give me another county. But that's fine with me, because Roger Mills County is just like Woods County, just like most of my counties are rural. We have the same values, and I did not want to be put into a urban area. Anyway, I was visiting, I did an eggs and issues there, and someone came up and wanted to know if we were going to override the veto on 291. And they were going through an issue with their kids that were abused, trying to get a victim protection order, and they couldn't get it done. So that was a big one. Another big bill that I had was 911. I had a bill that moved us to next generation 911. Prior to this bill, our 911 system in the state is I think 1976 analog system. If you call 911 on your cell phone, they may not be able to find you. We named the bill after a young man that died in eastern Oklahoma, had a heart attack. His parents called. They were close to a county line. The cell phone pinged off a tower in the other county, went to their 911 system. It took them 40 minutes to actually find out where they were at. When you're in a situation that seconds count, you want the 911 service to be able to find you. So, got that bill passed. That was a big accomplishment, because we had the big cell phone companies fighting it. They had it killed on the Senate floor, and I had to fight tooth and nail to get them heard. And what I mean by haven't killed, they had talked to the floor leader and convinced him not to hear the bill on the floor. I had to kick up a lot of dirt, scream from the top of my lungs, threaten them with a press release saying the floor leader team is more concerned with out-of-state companies' profits than rural Oklahomans. We got it on the floor, we got it heard, and then I had to cut a deal with the governor to get him to sign it because they were working the governor to veto it. But it is passed, it is in law, and we are moving this state to next generation 911 system, which is great for us. Probably, in my opinion, maybe the best bill I've ever read. And I've read a lot of good ones. You guys remember the ribeye steak. I mean, how do you top that? Well, you top it by running a bill that is actually going to save lives. This bill will save lives. And for me, that is, that's probably the most beneficial bill that I've ran since I've been there. Let's move into the fun stuff, the spending of money. Like I said, when Carl and I first came into office, when Carl came in, it was $1.3 billion hole in the budget, special session after special session. I don't think Carl ever went home. We were down there all summer long. My first year, our budget was $6.3 billion for the state in 2015. This year, our budget was $10.7 billion. A lot of that has to do with COVID money that came into the state. A lot of it is inflation. I mean, everybody here has been hit by inflation. Well, the state sales tax revenue, that sales tax is on the percentage of the sales. So our revenues were up really, really good this year. And then oil and gas. We have $10,744 million. Out of that, 53% of our budget goes to education. Now this year, we had historic funding to education. We put $500 million into public education. We did the largest teacher pay raise in state history. And what I like about this pay raise is it's stair-stepped. So teachers that's been there the longest gets the biggest raise. So if you're 1 to 5 years teaching, you get a $3,000 pay raise. 5 to 10, $4,000, 10 to 15, $5,000, and if you've been in the classroom 15 or more years, you get a $6,000 pay raise. Why I like that, those teachers that have been teaching for 15 years or more, struggling, underpaid, they're getting rewarded because they've stuck in the system the longest, and they should be rewarded. But with that, doesn't go without a deal. If you remember last year, we had a vote on the floor for vouchers. I voted against it. Did not help our district. It's an urban thing. It helps Oklahoma City and Tulsa. That's what it helps. I got punished for that. I lost my chairmanships. I lost a lot of things, but it wasn't good for our district, and I wasn't going to. I mean, I told Proton, thank you, because I just proved to my people I don't care about what's on my door. I'm going to serve you guys. This year, the House sends over a bill, and a lot of the senators were upset that the House sent this bill the second week of session. You want me to wait while you get that? Coming in the second week of session, sending this bill over to the Senate, it gave us all session to work on. Good and bad. we fought all session long over this education bill. And it was funding for public education, and it was tax credits for private schools. The final deal that we had on the private schools, and I'm going to try to do this from memory, Carl, so if I forget some things,
Okay.
clean it up when you clean up all my other mistakes.
Okay.
So 75,000 if a couple,
7,500. Oh, sorry.
75,000 income, you can get a $7,500 tax credit for going to a private school, and it's refundable. So if you don't have the money to send your kid to a private school, you get $7,500 refund, basically, to send your kid to a private school. And then it goes on up, and it goes up to 150 million is capped out. I voted for that, but I voted for that so we could get $500 million to public schools. I would have loved for it to have the $500 million to stay outside the formula, because most of my schools are off the formula. And when this funding comes outside the formula, a lot of my schools in District 27, they don't receive this money. But I think we cut about as fair a deal as we can, and why I say that, I think all parties walked away mad. And that's when you know you have a pretty fair deal when everybody's mad. Because I think everybody walked away mad. I say that, I think a lot of our schools are happy with the additional funding. It's not as good as what the House sent over. When they sent their package over, even though it had the tax credit in for private schools, I'm like, there is no way I cannot not vote for this, because it's giving our schools in Northwest Oklahoma so much extra money. But that was the big ticket item. That was the entire session. It took the oxygen out of the entire building. The entire session was the education. I think prior to that we were at 51% of the total budget was education. Now we're at 53%. So with that, I'm gonna kind of wrap that up. And I see hands. Carl, you want to do questions now, or when we totally get done?
It's whenever you want to.
Let's do it now. So it's fresh.
The governor vetoed.
I'll get to you.
The governor vetoed quite a few bills this year.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have legitimate concerns, or is he just being like a little child, taking his ball and going home? I know what I read in the newspaper, but I want to hear from the perspective of somebody who's actually there.
So what the governor did, so it was on the education deal. He was really pushing, and I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig. It was a voucher deal. The tax credit is a voucher. So I'm just going to call it a voucher. Carl can call it a tax credit, but it's a voucher. He was wanting that really bad. So we are still trying to negotiate. Our team, the House team, and the governor's teams meeting every morning, trying to cut a deal on what we're going to do. And he thought he'd put some pressure on the Senate to get this done, and so he started vetoing bills. We called it in the Senate the tantrum 20. Because he just felt like he was throwing a tantrum because he wasn't getting his way. But we came back in and overrode all of those vetoes. He was just, I think he was just trying to put pressure. You're at the negotiating table, and he doesn't have a vote on the floor. He's got a bully pulpit and the veto pen. That's
He was
where
just playing one of the cards in his hand.
that's the executive branch. He was trying to get movement. So that's what that was. You had a question?
Yes. On the voucher bill, aren't you concerned that when it gets into the court system, since it's now supporting religious schools, or they're in that process, that when it gets in the court system in 4 or 5 years, it's probably going to be declared unconstitutional. Just like the book ban bill that has been proposed is unconstitutional.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm proud of that fact.
Well, I'm a retired teacher, so I think I have a little bit of knowledge with 38 years in the classroom of what's going on.
What this plan is a tax credit.
I don't care how you dress it up, it is still a pig, as you said, with lipstick. It's a voucher bill.
I'm not going to argue that.
I'm also opposed to giving money to private schools, to parents who can afford to take care of that myself. When I'm working in a summer lunch program to feed kids who are hungry during the summer.
So
that's where the money needs to be going, not to some urbanite living in a multi-million-dollar mansion.
They don't get a tax credit. They don't get it because we
the cap is
cap
at
the income. We
But
cap
we're
the
starting
income
at
at $150,000.
75,000, whatever it is. How long will that cap last? It's not. They'll be changed by a legislature in a couple of years. But it's still, I don't want my tax dollars paying for a private school. I'm a public school teacher. That's what made this country strong. It put the kids together. If you go to the lunch program here, you will see that almost half the kids in that room have a brown tint to their skin. That's the future of our country. And we're being stubborn up here if we're not willing to greet these people and allow them to become parts of our community instead of pushing them down with these kind of programs to keep the people who are supposedly watching out for the rest of us in power. This voucher bill and now the book banning bill are a waste of time and a waste of taxpayer money. I can name you a book right now, and I doubt I could do it as a single person like they can in Florida to get a book banned. The little girl that gave these poetry reading at Biden's inauguration, probably very few of you watched, but I did. She gave a beautiful poem. Her book has been banned in Florida because it made one parent uncomfortable. Well, there's a book in our library, in fact, there's several editions, that's full of sex, violence, terrorism, everything. And if I say ban the Bible, I'd probably be run out of town. But that book is one of the worst books when it comes to that list of things that make people uncomfortable. Is that going to get banned? I doubt it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
On that also, on the list of books that we're trying to ban, Kill a Mockingbird, I'd like to know how many people in here haven't seen or read that book and find it offensive, because that's ridiculous. The Life of Frederick Douglass, why would we ban a history book of Frederick Douglass? It doesn't make any sense. Of Mice and Men. I mean, come on. The first paragraph of the Senate Bill 397 has 18 times in this bill they use the word certain. It is the most vague bill. You have certain books, certain people are going to make the list, certain designated groups. The librarian is going to have to go through all of their books and make a list. What a waste of tax dollars.
So I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with you right there. The books that we were targeting is books that's in elementary school and junior high schools.
But it's being expanded.
The main
Let me
bill
finish.
even affects adults. They're even
These
trying
are
to
books that
ban our adult books.
is in my. I don't even want to talk about it because it's so obscene. But it is.
Well, it is
how
when the book burning begins.
it is how. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
It is how to perform sexual acts.
Well,
And
as
that
a
should not
retired
be
teacher,
in
I
our
can tell you
school.
at the high school level, that topic never came up between me and my students in a history class
It's
or
being pushed
sociology
today.
And
class.
It's
so
being
the
pushed
state
today.
is going to play parent?
Do you have video films, since a lot of teachers are being videoed now of that kind of stuff?
What's the title of the book?
I don't know.
Why why would you not know that? If you're supporting a militant ban, why would you not know the title of the book that you're so?
Again, I mean, right off the top of my head, I don't have the title of the book.
If
I mean,
there's that
but
of
Killing the
public
Mocking,
school, you know the name.
To Kill a Mockingbird is not on that list.
No.
These are
It's
ones
on the
showing,
list of the state.
can I speak?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So, these are books that are explicitly sexual books. That's the ones that
But the ones that are being
can I
banned
speak,
aren't.
sir? Can I finish? Just want to make my one statement here. These are books that show explicit sexual things that is the one that the superintendent of education is banning. It's not To Kill a Mockingbird. It's not those. It's those that show sexual acts, oral sex, anal sex, those kind of things. And kids. I'm sorry. I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
So you're
But I mean,
saying
now,
none of the history books will be banned? Any books that any of our black authors or Latino authors, none of those books are going to be banned? Because when I looked on the list on the internet and it was showing the list of books that the Oklahoma wanted to ban, it was appalling. It was ridiculous. There's 43 books.
To Kill a Mockingbird was banned because of the slavery and the issues with racial.
happens.
But it was not something we pushed to ban. That was not a book we pushed to ban. The only thing, we have personally have not, I don't know which Senate bill, did that even pass? I don't think that, do you know who the author is of that book, of that bill?
I think it's
Yeah.
Hamilton.
So this bill, 397, Hamilton, Burns, Jets, and Bullard of the Senate, and Conley of the House. If this bill gets signed, it will go into effect, well, they'll start doing the sign-in on July 1st or something, and then it goes into effect totally into effect.
If there's an emergency on it, it goes in July. If there's no emergency, it's November.
Right. And it's on the list to be signed and go into effect in July.
Well, I don't have a problem with To Kill the Mockingbird, but I do have a problem with books in our elementary schools that are teaching kids sexual acts.
So can you get like a list of those books, because I'm generally curious as to what books are teaching kids how to have sex in elementary school?
I
And
will-
how are you interpreting that? Like the little book about the two penguin males that take in a abandoned chick? Oh, that's going down the wrong
No,
path.
it is
But that's one
when
of the books that's being considered.
this book was brought on one of the news stations, and they could not even read some of the stuff on news because of FAA, FCC regulations on what they can say over the air. If you can't say these things on the air, why does it need to be in an elementary school? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Carl,
All right.
floor is
Thank you.
yours.
One of the couple things we did do in the education deal, as you guys know, in education, we're ranked lower, and one of the things we're trying to do is raise that, and part of that is the third grade reading, right? So they got to pass third grade reading. So we added some additional funding in there to help with third grade readers. Some specialists come in to help. Not that our teachers aren't good, don't take that way, but to come in and help on that. And then also to protect our kids at the schools, each school will be able to get a resource officer, okay? A resource officer is basically somebody for security reasons, okay? Now, if your school already has a resource officer, you would be able to use that funding for other things that would help your school. But for instance, both of these are a 3-year project. We're going to add these things to it and see what happens. That finishes up most of the things I think on the education. So I did want to cover some of the other things we did do. Can I have that bill, that sheet there? So I have to have notes. Casey didn't have to. One of the things we worked on really hard this year was medical marijuana. Okay? As you guys know, it was passed, but we want as a medical marijuana, correct? And so some of the things we did is we tried to put it down to a true medical use. Like we made OMMA, Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Agency, a separate agency, and gave them authority to work with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, the OSBI, and all those to do investigative work. We also allowed them to set up a laboratory. If it's a medical product, correct, then it should be tested to make sure there aren't inert elements in there that could hurt somebody. And so we're going to allow them to do that. And also, by going in to take samples, they can go in as a secret shopper and get a sample and take it out and have it tested. Just makes sense. We want to make sure that this is a safe product. One of the other things is that if you have a grow license, or you have, a dispensary, you have dispensaries, processors, and growers. If you have a dispensary and you're not paying your taxes, you will lose your license, okay? And you will not be able to get another one. And we're limiting the number of grower licenses. There's still a moratorium on any more marijuana processing and dispensaries for another up till 2026. There will be no more of those. On growers, we're going to cap those at 1,000 grower license and limit it there. If you look at, I can't remember if it's Colorado or California, they have 6 growers. They only have 6 or 8 growers in the whole state. But one of them has a real, they're multi-million-dollar growers. And so we're going to cap it at $1,000. That way it does give, we have growers around here. I have constituents in Fairview that are growers, and we can cap it at that so that some of the small places can still be growers and be effective. And so we don't want to take that away, but we want to cap it at that because we think we've got plenty, and we know that there's some being shipped out. Oklahoma, as I told you before, is the #1 source of marijuana around the whole United States. And so we're just trying to make sure that we're using it for medical marijuana purposes. So we did all those on-site inspections, told about the moratorium, and most of the tax funds come from medical marijuana, go for substance abuse, and then common education. Okay, that's where we set up a tax fund, and that's where all that money goes. And we have brought in more money from that than we have any per sales. Also, we had a problem, and that's where we get called in is when there's a problem, and that somebody was supposedly building a business under another name and making dangerous substance or something like that. So any business that does dangerous substances cannot use what they call a straw person or a straw party. In other words, they had to put it under their own name. We did put $10 million into DHS to help with our home and community-based services for people with developmental disabilities. There was a waiting list to get into those kind of facilities, which is a shame. And so that's one of the things we try to do is get some money in there. And by the way, for all you senior nutrition programs, we made it a mandatory deal that DHS cannot change any of those with programs without both the Senate and the House approval. So those numbers will stay the same, the number of facilities. So I thought that was a good deal. Department of Corrections, I wanted to pass this on to specifically here. If you live within 40 miles of a correctional facility, Alva, Oklahoma, are you guys within 40 miles of a correctional facility? You are. We are starting an orange alert system, okay, which would allow you, if you sign up, they're not going to come out but they're going to put a notice in the newspaper, and if you desire to be notified, you can get on that list. And if an inmate does escape, they will notify you, which I think is a great thing. And so it makes you feel a little more comfortable, at least you at least know if something's happening, rather than having to hear it at the coffee shop the next day, or after your car's missing out of the driveway. So we did put extra money, again, more money back into county roads and bridges. Probably not as much as we wanted to, but we did get some money there. Also, we did put $28 million into small communities and county water systems. Okay? And I have me and my assistant have contacted or made contact with all the rural water districts in my area to make sure that they knew about that. That'll go through the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. Alva would be available if they wanted to do that. They could reach up there and do that. So I thought that was a big benefit. Also, not so much in our area, but catalytic converters, people stealing catalytic converters. You ever hear about that?
It is.
We made it like a drug bust, okay? So in other words, if you're caught stealing a catalytic converter and whatever saw you're using or whatever vehicle you're using to do that crime could be confiscated by the police. Just make it a little tougher on them. Also, punishment of domestic abuse committed against a pregnant woman with the knowledge of the pregnancy would be considered a felony. So, we did that. He's talked about education. I'm just trying to hit some of the ones we did. Higher ed, we also did put $129 million in higher ed. And also, there he is, he's behind the flowers over there. Dr. Hannaford came up and saw us this year. And because he came up and saw us and made a request, we have $500,000 coming back to Northwestern for the nursing program. So thank you for coming up. So we're glad to do that. And so, but some of the other things, we're trying to give an incentive program for teachers, trying to get them in the system. And so for applications and like that. And also there's a scholarship, and I'm sorry, I don't know exact details, but this would allow somebody to apply for a scholarship at college if they're going to go into education, even if they homeschooled or did a GED. They wouldn't have to go through any other
Aspire to
school.
teach.
Huh?
Aspire to teach.
Yeah. And aspire teachers, yeah. And so it's another way to get teachers in there. And so we're just trying to help in our education process. Now, yes, Oklahoma, we know, lives on busts and booms, right? And we know we're in a boom right now. I think we're on the tail side of a boom. And so we've been blessed with a lot of money. So one of the things we did this year is that we put $600 million into the legacy, legacy fund. And so we're for that $600 million, we're taking things that we would send out for bond issues, and we're self-financing of that $600 million. Okay? Now, why would we do that? Why are we using that with the tax dollars? First of all, if we have a bust, okay, that gives us the ability to hold those agencies from having to make payments on those bonds for that year. Not forgiveness, just to hold back money, which would decrease greatly the amount of money that we would have to pay out that year to those bonds. And so it gives us some flexibility in those leaner years.
And
Yeah.
Carl, by doing this, it also improved our bond rating,
Yeah.
so we'll get cheaper interest.
Well, yeah, so we have a lower interest on those bonds we do put out. And some of those things we did is that Oklahoma State University College of Veterinary Medicine over here, okay, used to be one of the best veterinary schools in the nation. We've had problems with even accreditation the last few years. And part of that has been because of our hospital facilities. As you all know, hospitals have to keep making improvements to to all their medical facilities and stuff like that. Same thing with veterinary medicine. I mean, when I was a kid, I never thought we'd have veterinary ophthalmologists, but it's a growing profession. And so, you know, we need to be able to provide those kind of skills. And so $79 million was set aside by this bonding through this to improve them. We also set up the OSU Veterinary Medicine as a separate agency, so put a board of 8 members over them across the state, so we can move them back up the ladder and make them one of the best veterinary medicine schools in the nation again. Because we are an agricultural business. Senator Murdoch can probably tell me better. Aren't we number 2 in the nation in cow-calf operation?
No, we're like 3 or 4.
3 or 4. But I mean, we're up at the top, and so we want to keep it there. Also, we did the Terry Peach North Canadian Watershed Restoration. And you say, well, what is that? Well, Terry Peach was a former Secretary of Ag, passed away recently. And what we're doing on the North Canadian River out here, we're going to do a pilot study. We're going to look at the North Canadian River, the water flow down the North Canadian River after we clear out acres of cedars. Yay. Because they figure that a lot of the cedars are sucking up the water and it's not ever getting to the river. Now, you guys know where the North Canadian go to? What lake? Canton Lake, yeah. And so we're trying to see what the impact of clearing cedars would have on the water going to the North Canadian. They're comparing, I think, the South and North Canadian, the water flow between the two. They're both parallel pretty much, and so they can compare those two based on how much the water flow is in this lake, this river, versus the other one where it's been cleared off. So,
And what Carl's saying is we know the red cedar affects our water. What this is going to do is to prove to the people in Oklahoma City, if we take care of the red cedar problem, it improves I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't understand what red cedars does to our water tables. We just have to prove it to the urban legislators so we can get something done.
And of course, Canton Lake is basically owned by Oklahoma City.
It is owned.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oklahoma City owns the surface rights to the water from Felt, Oklahoma, all the way to Oklahoma City. Because the Beaver River turns into the North Canadian, which runs on down, and they've got the surface rights all the way. They don't need to count on much coming out of Felt, Oklahoma, running that far.
And as you guys are well aware of, and I think I've covered a lot of things on here, in rural Oklahoma, we're blessed right now because we do have some leadership that is rural, as far as specifically the House, more so than the Senate, but no offense. But a lot of things are driven. I mean, if you take all the representatives, I can take reps, I don't know senators, probably less than half of that touch I-40, touch I-35, and are in the edge of Oklahoma City. Out of 101, there's 12. A little over 10%. So a lot of things are metro-driven, okay? The school choice issue that he brought up is metro-driven. We in rural Oklahoma have great public schools. I mean, we have great public schools here. Not good, great. In fact, if you took out Tulsa and Oklahoma City, we would not be 47th in the nation.
13th?
Probably 13th, I think. If you took out those school districts, okay? So the issue on the school tax credit, all that came from those areas where they're stuck in a school. We thought we had it fixed last year when we gave them open transfer. They could transfer from one public school to another. But it still got pushed down our throats about carrying this a little bit further. We did not want a voucher. I did not want a voucher. In fact, I voted against the tax credit. But I'll stand up here and say that's a lot better to me than a voucher where you just write a blank check for somebody to go to school. a tax credit. To get that tax credit, you've got to show expenses that you spent for that school. Does that make sense? Just like all you guys, if you want to get something written off, you have to prove, you have documentation that that's what that went for. And then we have a lot of homeschoolers and schools that don't have accreditation, and I have one of those in my deal that I'm still working on out of Woodward, that homeschoolers will get a $1,000 voucher, tax credit, not voucher, sorry, but those words I use my words right, tax credit for homeschoolers. So if somebody's doing their kids at home, they just feel that's the thing to do, they would be able to get that tax credit. So, yes, sir.
If I remember what you said right, the number of medical marijuana growers capped at 1,000, but is the number of plants they can grow a year also capped?
I don't think it's capped.
I mean, so you haven't really capped anything. You
No, really.
haven't changed anything.
Right.
You've just finalized the number and they can grow infinitely.
Well, but we have got the number of people that they have to go out and inspect.
Yeah.
So the issue we got, and especially with the illegal grows, we had so many, just logistically, the OMMA did not have enough people to hit them all. I did just some quick math in my head, and the people they had hired to go inspect everything, all the grows that we had in the state, it was going to take them 72 years to hit every one of them.
But if you're trying to decrease the amount of medical marijuana that may go out of state illegally, you haven't solved that problem because you haven't decreased the amount that's growing.
We did not decrease the amount.
We decreased the target size on.
Decrease the target, yes.
So it's.
But you haven't decreased the amount that is actually produced.
They're still doing the seed to sell method, and so I don't think we're there yet completely to do that. Because the kicker is you can prune
Yep.
and start another plant, and so
But each of them are tagged individually
yeah,
and recorded.
yeah. And so we're just wanting to make sure that. If we go down to 10 or 20 or 50, you're not going to have anybody in rural Oklahoma. You're going to have 10, 50 huge conglomerates that are in here, and still you aren't going to number.
I'm not concerned about the numbers. I'm concerned about the amount.
Right.
Because that
yeah.
solves a lot of other problems of illegality if you have an infinite amount as opposed to a finite amount.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But at least we got a target. We got 1,000 targets versus unlimited number.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
So what's happened is, which was great, that they put a stop on that, on all those growers. But the small growers that first started in Oklahoma, your smaller mom and pop growers that were selling to dispensaries, they're basically had to just fold because these growers that can grow unlimited, like this gentleman says, amount of plants, they're just engulfing the dispensaries. So, and selling at just like ridiculous prices that your small growers can't even afford, so they've had to fold. So it's these growers that have come in, and I actually think some of them have a little bit of dark money hidden in there because they're just these massive growing facilities that are, and like you said, they can grow as many plants as they want. There's no stop to it. And so it stopped some of the smaller growers that were just, some of the farmers that thought, hey, let's get into medical marijuana because our other farming things haven't been working, let's try this. It's pretty well put them out of business. I know several that have folded because of it.
I agree with that, but you see that in all industries. We're trying to, right now, we had on the pharmacy benefit managers, okay, I know that doesn't ring a bell with anybody, but that they are the ones that control pharmaceuticals coming down and how they're distributed to different groups and stuff like that. And so one of the deals, they were getting kickbacks for Walmarts and some of the more conglomerates. They were getting kickbacks from them, and so it wasn't fair to our local our local ones because they weren't getting this. In fact, they were losing money. I mean, I went down here to Holder Drug, and they were losing money on a prescription they were giving because of this. But they didn't want to lose the patient or the client, and so they were taking that cut. So the idea is we moved the enforcement of these benefit managers from the insurance commissioner, which wasn't doing much, to the attorney general. So we're hoping to get some more enforcement there. And so, yes, I agree. It does affect the small and pop. That's why we didn't want to limit to even smaller numbers. But we wanted to keep it, I don't even call it a manageable, but a targetable group. Yes, Doctor.
I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you bringing up the money that Northwestern received, but I wanted our community to know that yourself and Senator Murdoch went to bat for Northwestern and helped us behind the scenes, and that's much appreciated. So thank you.
No, thank you. But I mean, it's needs like that that we like to be able to do, is to be able to things that we can help back here. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question on the substitute teachers in Oklahoma.
On the what?
Substitute teachers in Oklahoma.
Right.
My concern is that basically you need a high school diploma and an ID, a state ID to be a substitute teacher. That's it. So therefore, the amount of substitute teachers in Oklahoma, because we are having problems with getting teachers there, basically you need a GED or a high school diploma to be a substitute teacher. And I find that a little concerning.
I think that's been the case all along, hasn't it? Back when we had a lot of people that substituted. Is that not right? I don't know. Yes.
But aren't they limited to a certain number of days?
There are certain number of days and number of hours you're supposed to teach. Yes, that is true. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question back about teacher pay raises. Is that for all teachers or
Okay.
certain?
Okay, it's for
Grade
all certified teachers. All certified teachers, 0 to 4 years experience, get 3,000, and then you jump another 5 years, they get 4,000, another 5. They get, I'm sorry,
3, 4,
3,
5,
4,
and
5,
6,000.
and 6.
Sure,
So,
sure.
so 15 and above have 6,000, and 0 to 4 have an additional raise.
I just thought I had heard at one point in time it was only for elementary teachers. Was that that was everything?
No, in
Okay.
fact, we did pay raises for them, we did pay raises for career tech, and pay raises for higher ed professionals.
We were trying to get support staff raises also, but that didn't make it through the negotiations.
Very good.
Was
Just
there any
a-
talk on evaluations of those teachers, or if you have a teacher that's been hanging around and not so great, you could say you want to incentivize them to continue? You know, like what's the evaluation process? To keep the good ones or recruit the good ones?
There was a talk about letting the superintendent decide who got the pay raise and stuff like that. But then that didn't always go over either, because then you gotta suck up to the superintendent. I like the superintendent likes me, so I'm gonna get a pay raise, you're not. So that's where we were stuck. And so we decided this was the best way we could do it at this point. And I do think evaluations need to be done.
So there was a merit bill out there to give raises on merit, and that didn't, we had it there for a little bit, then it didn't make it through the negotiations, but we were trying to do a merit-based pay raise also.
Yes, sir.
On the pay raise for certified teachers, I have seen situations where, yeah, that has passed, but when it comes down to doing it, librarians, counselors, all the assistant positions to help the teacher, not support staff, this is other certified people, had to fight, in one situation, I believe, with the court to get that kind of increase.
I think they're covered with this. I think.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are. But if they aren't, let me know. I'll be happy to fight for them. So, thank you. Miss Jody, thank you for letting us be here.
I'd like to, if you guys, I just got notified, Representative Bukowski, he's from Balco, represents the Panhandle. His sister was one that was killed in Perryton last night in those tornadoes. So if you'll keep his family in your prayers.
Thank you for sharing that. Miss Jody?
Thank you guys so much for coming to our last one. It's always informative. Thank you to the Cherokee Strip Museum for hosting us. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say? I'm looking at you, Aileen.
Okay, I'm Elaine Grevel. I'm the business manager. Janie Gould over here is our new chairman. Don Lynch just retired from being chairman. Carol Kishmer is on the board with us. Lenny Reed. Come and see us. We have survived all the school business and stuff. We've got one more group of homestead coming next week. A lot of treasures up here that we'd like to show off. We started hosting bingo. What do you say? So we've been having a monthly raffle. We have supported the Vanilla Bee. 818 has given a raffle. Several of them. So if anybody wants to contribute to a raffle coming up in July, we're glad. Otherwise, just come and visit. There's a lot of stuff up here. Most of our visitors are not from the county. They come from all over the state or all over the United States. Last year, we had somebody that was living on a sailboat. That doesn't happen in this area. So anyway, just come and visit us. We appreciate that attention.
We are also next quarter's community vision for Bankit.
That's right.
So stop by any of your local banks and donate, and of course that will go to the museum.
We'll be seeing improvements pretty quick. We are putting on a brand new roof. Metal roof. Building was built and opened up as a hospital in 32. So it's been replaced, patched, but it's still a flat roof. Now we're going to have to address that and get it fixed. So that's coming up. Our Narcissus will be a local king community.
We also have a speaker phone that we forgot to bring down. We apologize for that.
Also on the Bankit side, we're wrapping up this last quarter for Northwest Domestic Crisis Center. So again, stop by your local banks. A portion of that will be matched by your banks. They could use a little more funds before the June 30th cutoff. So if you haven't done that already, stop by and do that, or sign up to just donate monthly, $1, $5, whatever you can do. It'll go to whatever community vision is next for Bankit, and all of it stays local to help what's going on here.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share? Well, our next one is in July, and I don't have a location, so if there's anybody that would like to host it, that's a chamber member, let me know after the meeting. I don't know how I missed July, so we'll put it out in the paper too. So thank you guys for coming.